everybody, this is Chad at Texas Top Shelf Reptiles, and today I'm going to show you how we turn this to this. Alright, so I'd like to start off this video with the materials. So what does it take to make one of these enclosures? Well, as you saw some of the materials that I just went over in the pictures, well, I don't have all of it because I've used a lot of it, but we will go over the number one thing that I don't really like to use, but you have to, and that's spray foam. Spray foam is not my favorite, but I understand why a lot of people use it. One, it's cheap. Two, it is easy accessible. And three, it kind of looks pretty cool whenever it goes on. But cons, it takes a long time to dry. It is very toxic while it is drying. Three, I hate carving it. It's very porous, number four. And if you don't get all of the exterior shell off of it, if you're not using anything like just silicone and going over it with dirt or however you do that, then it is a semi-waterproof. So if you're going over it with grout or concrete or dry lock or the different things that we are going to go over, it does not stick very well. And so I don't really like it, but I do have to use it. I use it on this one. I made this tank here off of it, and we're going to go over that right now. Now, Einstein's tank here. What is the difference between the first tank and this tank? Well, the very first thing is the type of foam that I use. It's polystyrene insulation that you can get in many different box stores. I won't go over the names of them. Disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by any of these, but this is readily available in your box stores. They sell them in 2-foot sheets, 2 foot by 2 foot. They sell them in 4 by 8 foot sheets. I actually went to a cold storage place and got some of their remnants is how I did this one. And as you can tell, it is a lot easier to be stacked. It's a lot easier to work with. It's a lot easier to put in place. There's no curing time to it. It is a lot denser. So carving it is a little bit more of a challenge. But I did find a lot easier way to do it as I progressed through. Some people use the wire, the electric wire, the cutting wire. I just used a torch and a knife and heated that up, and man, you get that torch going and keep it on a low. Use that knife, heat that knife up, and it cuts like butter. And that's how I did this one, and we will go over those pictures now. We get to my latest enclosure. This enclosure here was definitely a accumulation of just trying things out and figuring out what worked the best. Now this has ventilation, it has water system in it, it has 3 different types of lighting systems in it. It's got elevation, it's got depth. There was a lot to it. There was a lot of thinking process into this one versus the other two where it was just kind of go and make. So I'll go over the pictures with these now and we'll roll that tape. everybody, we are out here where all of the magic happens. This is the materials, and this is a majority of all of the stuff I use besides the big pieces of wood and plywood that I find, that I have to buy. I do find little pieces of plywood like this all the time on Facebook Marketplace. People throwing it away, different things like that. I keep every single piece of wood that I have until it gets to the point where I know I just need to throw it away. So I don't have spray foam on here. It's because I really have stopped using spray foam for the most part, because I can make structures and things that look like realistic rock very easily, and waterproof, super light, durable. Not that durable, but I make it out of stuff like this. This is polystyrene, and it is a cold storage type of insulation. They put them in between the walls and such like that. Super lightweight, strong, semi-waterproof, and it is very easy to carve once you get some heat behind it and you start carving this. It's pretty easy. You can make really cool structures with it, and then you can heat it up. And once you get it carved, you go over it with light heat, and it suctions all those pores together, and it makes a really nice flat surface for you to paint on. So wood, back to wood. I'll find pieces like this that people have thrown away that are on the side of the wood, and I always stop, pick them up, and grab them. People throwing these away. They don't have wood floors anymore. This is a full stack of 4-foot pieces, hardwood. This can go out on the outside of some cheap plywood on the outside of your tank and really make it look really nice. And if you've ever cut and used this, it's just tongue and groove. It works very easily to cover spaces, especially the large spaces. All right, when I first started, I was using concrete. I was using concrete, then I went to using grout, and I found out both of those I didn't really like the way that they hardened and dried. So I started using Drylock Extreme. There's two different versions of this. They're both white. There's Drylock and Drylock Extreme. Drylock Extreme is a little bit more waterproofing, and it also does not have sand grit in it. The Drylock, just a regular Drylock, which is like $5 or $6 cheaper than this, has like sand granules in it, which is kind of neat if you're doing like the inside structure that I did for Einstein's cage. I used just the regular without the Extreme in it, and it made it really grainy looking and made it look like a lot of rock. This I wanted to use because the Tegu cage enclosure that I made is a lot more water in it, and I wanted to make sure it was a lot more waterproof and smooth for the rock surfaces that I was doing. Polyurethanes and stains. Water-based polyurethanes. Do not use oil-based. They are toxic to your animals. So we have a stain. We have a stain and polyurethane, and then we have two different types of polyurethanes here. These usually use on the exterior of whatever we're building. I don't ever stain or polyurethane on anything on the inside because I use the Drylock and it locks everything in. I've seen multiple people use this stuff. I haven't had a very long episode with it, except for about 5 months now. Works a lot better. The spray foam tends to expand under high heat. So if you were to have a rock ledge underneath a heat light, a lot of times that spray foam will continue to get porous and dry and grow out like this, and then you'll get all these cracks and stuff in your spray foam, and it just doesn't look really well. That's why my tank, the very first one I did with spray foam, I ended up bringing it back out and Drylock. The other things that I use for paint coloring, because obviously the paint is white, but the dry lock is just, see if we can get that to focus, is cement color. This is just a liquid that you pour in there, and simple non-toxic acrylic paint. And I have gotten a various colors of these, white, reds, greens, blues, different things like that to add to them. To do another thing that I use, liquid nails. I am not a sponsor of any of these, just to let you know. I'm just showing you the products that I use, and then also 100% silicone. Now, good thing to know about the silicone here is that it is really good to use after you have painted everything, and really horrible to use before you paint anything. So if you're trying to paint over this, it is not going to happen. So make sure you get everything painted, all your dry lock in, stuff like that, and then you go back over any of your cracks and stuff with your silicone here. And normally I use this at the base where things are going to be waterproofed and stuff like that. This I use for like a lot of my trim, different things that I put on before I staple it in. That way I'm not having to put a lot of screws and stuff in on the exterior. So I'll put some heavy liquid nails on it and then staple it in. Plastic wood. Once again, not sponsored. This is just you can get any kind that you want. This is just a plastic wooden type of material that you put in all of your holes and your gaps, your corners, your edges, stuff like that, before you paint or stain or do anything like that. And then it is either a water base where you can wipe it down. I usually go over it with a sanding block, sands everything, gets it nice and even and stuff, and then paint over, stain it. It'll actually take your stain color too. That's pretty neat. A bunch of small brushes. I use these for twofers. I use these for painting out here, and my daughter, as you can see, uses the rest of them. Various paint brushes. You'll have some good, some old. And you can see how horribly this one is versus this one, right? Different sizes. You want to have different sizes so that you can get in different cracks, crevices. You want some that once they go from this, you've used them several times, they get beat up. This is still actually really good to put the dry lock on with. It's thick and stuff, and so this will just kind of be like a thicker brush. It'll put it on there real thick without doing a lot of pull on it and stuff. For paint, I just use your normal household exterior paint if I'm painting the exterior of it, and then I let it dry for 24 hours, and then I'll put a polyurethane over it to make it water as well. So one more thing, these are kind of what I make my building block on. That's what I kind of decide I'm going to take this and what I'm going to make next. Okay, what is this? This is something that I found on the side of the road. Besides this door back here. This door is going to be the entrance to my Tegu enclosure at some particular time when I get moved and get to the new house. But this is just some trunk that I found that somebody is throwing away. And it's got some bad places on the sides. It's an ugly color. It's got this horrible metal stuff in the interior of it that just kind of moves around and stuff. But all of this can be replaced. If it's wood, it's been built. Somebody built this and put this together. So I can open this bad boy up, put all of my, take this front piece off, put some glass in here, cut a hole for a light source in here and ventilation, and I've got a beginning of almost a 40-gallon breeder right there. And we can use it for multiple different things, which I think I will be making some kind of leopard gecko or something like that enclosure. This is probably what I'm going to use to make my next little enclosure. It'll be a little bit smaller, not so big, but everybody will be able to get the idea of what I'm doing with it. Okay, so those were all the materials that I use on a normal basis. Some have came, some have gone. Like I said, it was the evolution of building the first tank to getting to this one to the Tegu tank that's outside. But I'm sure some will come and some might go, but for right now, these are what I'm using. And I will do that enclosure build here in the future. I just gotta wait to get the materials. I will bring the camera along with me. I'll show you where we're going to pick up all the materials, and also kind of how I scrunch through some things to find some things. So we'll be on that journey together. I wanted to show you where we started, where we're at now, how I got there, and just the thought process maybe of the building structure. And so that way you can kind of see what you like and if you can incorporate it in any of your builds. But with that in mind, leave a comment down below and let me know what materials you use, how you've gone about it. And also, with that in mind, like, subscribe, and share this channel. That way we can grow together. And so in the future, we will talk about more of the reptiles that we'll be getting for all these enclosures and stuff.